Welcome back to our Mayoral Forum. We're now going to send it over to Tiffany Walden. She's got a question on housing as well. It will be directed to Jamal Green, Sophia King, and Brandon Johnson only.
Thank you, Marianne. Block Club Chicago reported last week on a group of tenants forced to stay in hotels since December 31st because they lost heat and hot water. Block Club reported the building's owner has been cited numerous times for code violations related to the tenants. How will your administration hold landlords and big rental companies accountable for repeated violations of tenants' rights? Jamal Green.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. This is happening all across our city where these private developers are treating their tenants and allowing them to live in inhumane conditions. And the city needs to step in. The city must start putting measures in place so that we can start fining these developers per day till they mitigate these concerns. They also need to make sure, that they're paying for the relocation of these tenants. We got to hold them accountable. It's too many people in the city of Chicago living in units that have inhumane conditions, and the city of Chicago must be a partner and must be forceful when it comes to the developers who develop in the city of Chicago.
Alderwoman King.
Yeah. I would do what I've been doing in the ward. We had a building on Ellis Street where the landlord was basically a slumlord, and they're in court. We're trying to remove them as landlords. We have to hold them accountable in our community. We also have government institutions that we need to hold accountable as well, where a lot of our under-resourced community live, whether it's HUD or CHA. We have to bring the regional director of HUD together because the landlords that they give really commercial rent to, those landlords then turn around, they're slumlords, and they treat our elders like they're kids. We can't allow that to continue to happen. I have more senior buildings than almost anybody in the city, and all I see is landlords taking advantage of our residents.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, we're definitely going to hold them accountable. Look, the city of Chicago deserves a mayor who is compassionate, collaborative, and competent. I happen to possess all three of those characteristics. That's why I've actually built 2 affordable housing units for seniors in my Cook County district. We broke ground on 1. It's why I'm a supporter of Bring Chicago Home, because the fact of the matter is it's not just about holding these private entities accountable. It's about making more space for people to actually live in a very thriving, healthy, safe community. And that's why Bring Chicago Home is going to deal with the 65,000 people who are unhoused, 20,000 of whom are students. You need a competent, collaborative, and obviously a caring leader. And that's what I possess. And I'm looking forward to leading this city in the days to come.
All right, guys, we are going to talk about contracts and the disparity between black businesses and all the contracts are being issued by the city of Chicago. City data specifically talks about this. And I'm not just talking about construction contracts. We're talking about professional services as well, like for attorneys and accountants. These contracts have the potential to create real wealth. According to city's data, only 1/3 of those contracts went to minorities, and only 11% of that third went to black-owned businesses. Now, I don't know math that great, but that sounds like single digits to me. We've got 32% black population in Chicago, and we're talking about single digits in black contracts, and this precedes all of you guys' political career here. So this is not an indictment on you at all, Mayor Lightfoot. I want to be clear. This has been going on for over 30 years. Plus, guys, this is a real crime that's going on in Chicago and been going on for a long time. How do you guys plan on dealing with that disparity? And we're going to start with Brandon Johnson, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, it is a big deal. Look, this is an opportunity to create generational wealth with these contracts. You know, when unemployment for white men in this country was 30% during the Great Depression, our country called it a national crisis, literally giving opportunities to white men, shovels before there were things to dig. We have things to dig. We have things to build in this city. And we have lives to save. And so one of the things we do is we make the process easier. We create opportunities, particularly with the vacancy that exists in the city of Chicago, not just the abandoned buildings, but the abandoned property, the abandoned land as well. We use it as an economic driver to put people to work, to create more housing opportunities for families to actually live in the city of Chicago. And you do it by just simply taking it seriously. If you say you love the city of Chicago without loving people, then you're not fit to be mayor. I'm going to fully invest to make sure that our people get an opportunity to actually experience the wealth of this country.
I'm talking about this disparity between black contracts in the black population, guys? 32%, and we're
answer the
hovering
question.
around single digits here. Let's go to Willie Wilson, businessman. This is something that...
Well, we'll change it from day one. We'll put a committee together that monitor these particular businesses. Equal opportunity, equality for all citizens. We'll put those goals together, check on them on a monthly basis, put a commission in City Hall to make sure we reach our goals. These problems here cause problem in the community, crime, by not having enough resources and funds. As long as you live in poverty, there always will be crime, and we have to stop it. You know, well, look, I didn't get in business just because I have money, because I had none. But it was major corporations helped support that, and we got it together. And that's how we got in business. That's how we grew. I know how to do it. I'm a business person that been through it and know how to do it. We will fix it from day one.
Cam Buckner, and again, guys, I want to close this gap. 32% population, single-digit contracts.
Yeah, Matt, people are, once again, not answering the question. I'm going to be very clear. I'm going to make it plain like my granddaddy would say. Listen, if we're 32% of the population, we will be 32% of city contracts. There's no other way around it. There's no way to massage this to make it sound better. That's what we have to do. That has to be our plan. The truth of the matter is that when we look at the crime and the disinvestment in our communities, this is a part of that conversation. And the city, the mayor's office, has to lead the charge in this space. I've said this once before tonight. I'll say it again. Equity requires specificity. Let's not be scared of it. Let's not keep on pushing black folks out of Chicago. What people are yelling right now is cut us in or cut it out. And that will happen under a Buckner administration.
All right. Alderman King, you work in city council. You know the numbers. How do we change this?
Yeah, your numbers are high, quite frankly. The reality is, under a black mayor, contracts are down for African Americans. They're down also in the airport, which is $10 billion worth of contracts. They are down under the administration. Airports, under 9% African American. In the water department, under 7%. AIS, under 17%. CDPH, billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, under 2% for African Americans. CDOT, under 6% for African Americans. That's despicable. And it is under this administration, from the last administration. So let's not put syrup on pancakes. This is the truth. We can turn this around. In my ward, billions of dollars of work, we are over 40%.
Thank you.
All right. Jamal Green.
Yeah, well, for Brandon Johnson to act like he's the only black person on the stage, he shouldn't answer the question. Black people need to get these contracts. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to remove black people from the minority identifier. They need their own identifier when it comes to contracts to make sure that they get the set asides. We also need an office for folks of the ADOS or Free Black Men of America community so that we can make sure that we coordinate all the departments to uplift these neighborhoods. We also need to take every dollar from every contract in the city of Chicago that's given to go into a fund that will support young people in these neighborhoods, that will support housing in these neighborhoods. We have the opportunity to do this, and a lot of the contractors are not able to get the bonding or insurance. We need to step in and remove those barriers and, as a city of Chicago, bond and insure them.
Congressman Garcia, Latino contracts are doing a little better. How do you close this gap, though?
First of all, I want to underscore that, and I put my glasses on to make sure that there's a need for transparency in contracting in the city, because right now you don't know if the city or city agencies are publishing that data. Two, the city and city agencies need to set minority participation goals for contractors, and we don't know if the goals are met or not. And prime contractors need to be held accountable for achieving or exceeding minority goals. Lastly, the areas of correction include providing firms with bonding capacity, insurance requirements, cash flow, and the size of contracts, and breaking up, unbundling the big contracts to ensure that minorities and especially black firms are getting a larger share of the pie toward equity.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Sawyer.
Yes, the original answer is intentionality. You want to make sure that a leader is going to make sure that happens. And it has not happened significantly since Mayor Washington, Mayor Sawyer administrations, where black numbers were much higher. What I've done in this far, when we talk about unbundling, I helped create the SBI and MBI program in the city of Chicago, which unbundles those contracts. I have made an attempt to remove the net worth and the income requirements from black contractors because that doesn't make them, when they do better, that doesn't change their color. We want to make sure that black people have every opportunity to succeed at their highest levels. We also we spoke out back in 2017 about the instance that Representative Buckner talked about. If 2/3 of the work, the population is black and brown, 2/3 of the work should be black and brown. We worked on that back years ago. And the MBA program itself is nothing but a black tax. You're spending thousands of dollars on applications and not getting any better.
Mayor Lightfoot, I know it seems like some is coming to you, but this preceded your administration. But how do we get this number changed?
Well, we do the things that we've been doing, which is we unbundle the contracts. We have actually already changed the net worth that was passed by City Council when we passed our disparity study. We set the numbers at 26 and 6. We've increased them. But the biggest thing is we've got to make it easier for black contractors, whether they're construction or personal services, to do business with us. And fundamentally, that means we got to pay them, and we got to pay them on time. And we've done exactly that. And as for the airport, I was just there a week or so ago. T5 opened up. That was led by a black contractor, not as a subprime, not as a joint venture, but as a leader. There are billions of dollars that are out there, and a significant portion of them are going to black contractors like never before.
Not true.
All right, Mr. Vallis, you were in charge of
Okay, let me tell you.
You got some experience with these contracts.
Let me tell you how you do it and how I did it. First of all, when I did the $3.2 billion school construction program, 55% of all the contracts went to minority and women-owned businesses, including 32% of black male-owned businesses alone. And 58% of the hiring were minorities because we required that they do minority hiring. We audited everything. Now, how did we do that? How did we accomplish that? First, I took all the projects out of the Public Building Commission. Incidentally, a year after I left, they brought all the projects back in. The second thing I did was I insured the companies so black contractors could, in fact, get insurance and bonding. And the third thing I did was negotiate the first project labor agreement with the labor union so black contractors could hire their own workers as long as they were paying prevailing wage and providing benefits. That's how you do it.
Thank you, Mr. Vallis. Are we going to do another hand-raised questions, guys? You know this is a big issue. If elected mayor, raise your hand if you would make it mandatory for your department heads to go in front of city council and be held accountable.
Oh.
Okay. It looks like everybody.
I think that's
a unanimous there. Okay. Let's turn to public transportation. We do want to start with a hand raise. Raise your hand if you would advocate for a separate police force for the CTA. Paul Vallis, Alderman Sawyer, the only ones that would support that. Next up, what is your plan to improve safety on and reliability of the CTA? Let's start with Paul Vallis.
Well, first of all, I believe the CTA needs leadership change because if you look at every single indicator, public safety or services or maintenance, the bottom line is they're at the bottom. Public safety, almost 50% of those surveyed by WBZ indicate that they believe that public transportation is unsafe. And the fare box has now dropped to 18% of the operating budget, which is the disaster and COVID money. So what would I do? First of all, I would take the $100 million that they're using for private security, and for $100 million, you can hire another 300 police officers to be added to the police officers currently dedicated, and you can make sure that community policing extends to the CTA. That means officers on the platforms. That means officers at the station. That means officers periodically riding the trains. Bottom line is you got to address the safety issue.
Thank you, Mr. Vallis. Mayor Lightfoot.
Well, first of all, we have improved safety on the CTA, and we've made progress because we've started with listening to the workers. We've listened to the workers of the ATU unions, both rail and bus, the vast majority of whom are African American. And we've listened and said, what do you see? What do you think are the improvements? Number one thing that they've said is uniformed police officers on the rails, uniformed police officers in the bus stations. And Mr. Vallis says this all the time. He clearly doesn't ride the CTA, and I could speculate why that is. But what we've done is made sure that they're visible. They're doing their roll calls. They're doing the check well-beings with the workers. They're on the platforms. They're riding the trains and they're riding the buses. That has made, I think, a remarkable difference. And why we also need these non-union. I'll continue my answer.
Alderman Sawyer.
Yes, I would include with the safety and reliability, the cleanliness, obviously. We want to make sure that the experience of riding the CTA is beneficial for our transit riders all throughout the city, particularly on those areas that have been historically disinvested. So you want to make sure safety. I do agree with removing the unarmed security with the dogs, replacing them with more armed security. I want to make sure that we can eliminate the ghost buses and trains. When people look at their phone and see that a train is supposed to be at a certain time and they're depending on that to get to school or to work, it should be there when they say it's there. We have the technology. It can happen. And additionally, we want to make sure that we're continuing to work with our union partners to make sure that all of our stations, when our buses are clean and respectable, so that the people won't have a bad experience when they ride our trains and buses. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Garcia.
As a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, I helped deliver to keep the CTA and Metro afloat during the pandemic and through this year. Next year, some of that money will run out. Very important. We also delivered for the city of Chicago almost $2 billion that have kept the finances in place. With respect to safety, the following is what I would do. By taking the citywide police units and deploying them in the neighborhoods, it would provide more officers to patrol around stations. Hiring additional operators, conductors, and maintenance personnel would have a greater presence on the CTA and would ensure that the buses and trains are cleaner and safer as well. We've kept it afloat. I would meet with the transit agencies to figure out how we reimagine getting people back on trains and buses and raising the level of ridership.
Jay Mulgreen.
Yeah, CTA is a mobile homeless shelter right now. We got to make sure that we're investing in what's really going on. And this is a human issue. A lot of this is about the fact that there's a lot of people who need services. One of the things we would do is we would declare a state of emergency so we could free up funds to deploy social workers to get folks off of the trains and partner them with services. We need to reopen up our mental health facilities. We need to have temporary housing available immediately, so some of those funds would help with that. We also need peacekeepers under CTA, not a police force, but more of people who will mitigate concerns on CTA and make sure that they are mitigating any situations that's happening on CTA. And we got to modernize CTA. We got to make sure it's more clean, add more shifts, add more workers to the platforms as well, because it obviously smells like urine in a lot of places.
Thank you,
and we
Mr.
need to
Green.
do a lot more.
Alderman King.
So yeah, safety, reliability, cleanliness. Cleanliness is a low-hanging fruit. I don't understand why all of our platforms just aren't clean and inviting. That's something we can do day one. But in order to really have a world-class transportation system, we have to take a regional approach like other big cities like Boston, like New York do. We lost out on a lot of money, I believe. We got $29 million to electrify our buses. Other big cities with a regional approach got over $100 million to do so. I think the federal government sees us as competing between CTA, Metra, and PACE. But if we take a regional approach, we can use economies of scale and bring a world-class CTA system or regional approach, RTA system, to our city.
Thank you, Alderwoman Cam Buckner.
Listen, as far as security is concerned, there are things we can do immediately. One, we have 32,000 cameras on the system that are not connected to the central security system. We have to change that. We need to bring back transit ambassadors and create a contemporaneous text program so people can see something and then say something. Listen, the truth of the matter is the real issue is ridership is down because reliability is down. I put forth a sweeping plan to make sure that we can overhaul our CTA process and make sure that the system is actually working. The other thing is that, listen, under a Buckner administration, you'll have both a president of the CTA and a mayor who actually rides the system. I wish this mayor and this administration would ride the system more. It's a horrible cook that won't eat their own cooking, right? We have a way to move this system forward. It's about putting resources there, having leadership there, making sure we do it.
Thank you, Representative Buckner. Willie Wilson.
Well, I would bring back the armed policemen, number one. And then we'll also get conductors. We'll also hook up the radio from the conductor direct to the police station in that particular area. And we'll also make sure the buses are clean. And we also will lower those prices on the CTA to make sure that we can bring riders back. Right now, prices are so high, people can't afford to ride CTA because they can't hardly buy eggs, things of that nature. So you got to lower those prices to get ridership back up. The CTA, and don't worry about this unarmed security guard because nobody going to listen to it.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Brandon Johnson.
Yeah, well, thank you. My public transportation plan articulates how we can have a more reliable, safe public transportation system. One of the things that we do right away is we have to hire up. It's an opportunity to close the gap between graduation from high school and actually job opportunities. The second thing, of course, we need more intervention specialists that actually can help people along the way who do right now. I've also put forth a plan where we actually increase the number of bus-only lanes with traffic signals to give them preference to help keep moving the line along. That will ultimately keep it safe. Look, on the county board, we brought together Metra, we brought together PACE. CTA did not come. When I'm mayor of the city of Chicago, all three entities will come together. We also make sure that students get to ride free, seniors get to ride free, low-income folks get actually reduced fare.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, and thank you all for your responses. We're at the conclusion of the question and answer session. We do appreciate your time. We now will invite each of you to give a 60-second closing statement. We're going to begin with Jamal Green.
Yeah. I want to start my closing by giving honor to one of my mentors who died today, Mother Josie Childs, the head of the Harold Washington Legacy Committee. Just a few days ago, I sat with her, received her mentorship, and she sent me on with a contribution to say, go out there and get them. And she died today. And somebody who really played a huge part in Harold Washington's life. And right now, we need someone who really understands what that moment looked like many years ago and really has the wisdom of those folks who understand the progress our city can actually make. I'm ready to step up and assemble the best team on day one to get this city in order and create a future we can all believe in and bring the vision to light, not just more tired memories and the same old political rhetoric. It is time for change, and I'm ready to lead on February 28th. Text GREEN to 61514 or go to gogreenchicago.com and join our movement today.
Alderwoman King.
Yes, with 16 of my colleagues leaving and all instability and dissension, I will be a mayor that leads with collaboration and continues to get things done in a very equitable. Am I
Would
okay?
you like to start again because I think your mic went out?
Did it?
Yeah.
Mic check, mic check.
I think
1,
you're
2.
okay.
1,
My
2.
apologies, but we'll let you start again.
Okay. With 16 of my colleagues leaving, is it out again?
No, you're fine.
Okay. With 16 of my colleagues leaving, we need a mayor. I will be a mayor that leads with collaboration in order to get things done. I've been able to show this over the last 6.5 years where I fought for a $15 minimum wage hike, which brought mainly black and brown women out of poverty, 400,000 of them. I lead the former Michael Reese site, which is bringing $25 million commitment to education, 20% affordable housing on site, 60% minority participation. I've been leading in my community with my minority participation where the floor is more like 40% for people of color. I will continue to do that as mayor. Lead with a true equitable approach because we know that an equitable Chicago is a strong Chicago, and a strong Chicago is a safe Chicago.
Thank you. Alderwoman. Representative Buckner.
Chicago, the future is here. And we have to do the work to make it the best that we can do. Listen, we should not be talking about bringing Chicago back to some nostalgic version of itself. We should be giving Chicago the opportunity to be the city that she has always deserved to be. You heard a lot of talk tonight about returning to the 1990s. Listen, unless we're talking about Chicago Bulls basketball, the 90s should stay in the rearview mirror. We don't need to go back there. The juice is not worth the squeeze when it comes to that work. Listen, we have an opportunity to move this city forward. For teachers and students, for risk takers and business owners, for generational curse breakers, all of us who love this city, to do this work. I don't want to be mayor of Chicago. I want to be mayor for Chicago. I don't want to fix Chicago for you. I want to fix Chicago with you. And so I'm asking for your support on February 28th, punch 3.
Thank you, Representative Buckner. Willie Wilson.
Well, first of all, unless you get crime down, you can forget about the rest. Unless you can get these taxes down, crime and taxes, everything else is going to go downhill. The other thing is, too, I'm running for mayor of Chicago. I don't want a paycheck. I don't even need one. And I'll be the type of mayor that, look, if the citizen is hurting, I wouldn't give myself an automatic raise. Where's the sympathy for the people? You're looking after your own pocket. You know, the other thing that I would do is that if I got a corporate world, you cannot work one job and work another one and get paid. We have people have job right now and running for mayor and still getting paid. Well, I don't have respect for people who come off the payroll.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Mr. Wilson. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot about my older brother, Leon, who had untreated trauma and died addicted and unhoused. I think about if the services were available for him, would he be alive today to see his grandchildren? You know, the fact of the matter is that we're all feeling a little less safe. We're a little scared, and we're worried about whether or not our children will grow up in a city and be able to live to tell a story of one Chicago, and that's why I'm running for mayor of the city of Chicago, to usher in a better, stronger, united, safer city. One story for one Chicago, no matter where you live, whether it's the south side or the west side of Chicago. You have seen the devastations of economic despair and the defunding of our public accommodations. Under a Johnson administration, I'm going to invest in people because that's what's required. Just like we invested into the largest universal basic income program in the entire country, eliminating up to $1 billion worth of debt. We can build a stronger, safer Chicago together. I want you to go to brandingforchicago.com, and on February 28th, I want you to join the movement and punch
Thank
5.
you very much.
Thank you.
Paul Vallis?
Look, the crisis we face today is really a crisis of leadership, and it didn't begin with this mayor, and certainly things have not gotten any better. I mean, if you look at the degrading of the police department, if you look at the deterioration of the schools, if you look at the fact that we have this cycle of tax and spend budgets that increasingly are driving people out of their homes and really destroying businesses with this we have the highest property taxes among big cities in the country. It's all a product of bad leadership, bad decisions on the fifth floor. What I'm offering is quality leadership, not the quality leadership of a single individual, but someone who has a track record of success. I've had success as city budget director and as running the Chicago Public Schools, rescuing Philadelphia, rebuilding an entire a system in New Orleans because I have drawn from the community. I've listened to the community. I prioritize those who have the greatest needs, and I've always been able to draw from the community and assemble the type of leadership team that can move those cities forward. That's what I've always done, and that's why I've always had success, and that's the leadership I'm offering.
Thank you, Mr. Vallis. Mayor Lightfoot.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to speak directly to the voters, in particular to address the needs of Black Chicago. Every single person on this stage loves our city. Every single person believes that they've got the kind of ideas and energy to make a difference. But the difference between all of them and this administration and me specifically is that I've done concrete, tangible things to move our city forward on behalf of our people and particularly Black Chicago. I'm unapologetic about the fact that we must invest in Black Chicago. We must bring economic development, hope, and opportunity to communities that have been starved for far too long. Whether it's Invest Southwest, $2.2 billion, whether it's the Chicago Recovery Plan, another $400 million, whether it's extending mental health services to all of our 77 neighborhoods, whether it's finally bending the curve on violence that has plagued our city for far too long. I have a record of accomplishment, specific, concrete things that have benefited this city.
Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. Alderman Sawyer.
Yes, Chicagoans, when you're looking for the qualities of a leader, you ask for certain things. You want someone who's risen through the ranks, who has respect of their colleagues, who has subject matter knowledge on what you're asking them to lead on, and has a vision. I'm the person that hits all of those buttons. I've been doing the work for the last 12 years. I have the most current and relevant city government knowledge than anybody on this dais. I also have a vision for the future of Chicago. I want to make sure that we're working with each other, doing better, doing what we can to get this city finally on the right track, and making sure that when people ask for service, when they're requesting things getting done, they get it done without issue, without any problem, and making sure that we can ask, what else can we do for you? I'm that person that's doing this work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I want to continue doing it, serving you as the mayor of the city of Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And Congressman Garcia.
Thank you, Black Chicago and the rest of Chicago who tuned in tonight to hear what may be our last forum. I am honored to have been elected as part of a movement that empowered Black and brown communities. My commitment to unity and advancing disadvantaged people in Chicago has always been unwavering. It's part of the reason when I was a state senator, I was elected chairman of the Black Caucus by my black colleagues and one other Latino. It's why I remain steadfast in the fight for the Little Village Lawndale High School to ensure that black children from North Lawndale would be as welcome there and their parents as anyone else. My commitment to unity, my commitment to advancement, my commitment to mutual respect has always been intact. I want to use my experience in elective office, currently in Congress, to help rebuild Chicago with a strong core of equity for all people.
Thank you, Congressman.
Yeah.
And since tomorrow is Valentine's Day, I only say one thing. Be mine and punch 9.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you. Thank you, all you guys, for participating. And thank you to Tiffany Walden, of course. You were amazing tonight. And I'll be talking about all you guys tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock on WVON, 1690 AM.
Nice,
I know, I'll be nice. Tune in. We're going to talk about it.
And be sure to watch continuing coverage at NBC5. We will have a wrap-up of all of this on the news tonight at 10 o'clock. We thank you for watching. We hope you got some information that will help you make your decision on who you think should be Chicago's next mayor. Be sure to vote on February 28th. Have a good evening.